The great drama and passion of Holy Week begins on Palm Sunday, where Christ enters into Jerusalem from the east, as he foretold in Matthew chapter 24. For as lightning comes from the east and shines as far as the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. After Christ once visits the temple, he leaves and spends the night in Bethany, and then returns Monday morning so that he can go curse a fig tree, and we don't know why. And then Jesus returns to the temple to cleanse it. And we hear this story from Matthew chapter 21. And Jesus entered the temple and drove out all who sold and bought in the temple. And he overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who sold pigeons. He said to them, "It is written, 'My house shall be called a house of prayer,' but you make it a den of robbers." And the blind and the lame came to him in the temple, and he healed them. But when the chief priests and the scribes saw the wonderful things that he did, and the children crying out in the temple, "Hosanna to the Son of David," they were indignant. Well, it's Monday of Holy Week, so what that means is right now I'm probably on the road to Spokane to get my monthly infusion of a crazy pharmaceutical that's supposed to take care of some of my chronic illnesses. And yet on this day, there's something that's bigger happening in our story. It's the story of Christ entering into the temple to cleanse it, to make room for Gentiles to worship in God's house. He's reclaiming a sacred space. St. John Chrysostom, early in the church, probably 3rd century, points out that the center of every city is its house of worship. And for a long time, you could drive into any city, and as you would approach the city, the first thing you would see is steeples dotting the skyline. Now you're more likely to see stadiums and federal buildings and bank towers as our centers of worship. But it begs the question, as we are all locked in our homes right now, were you to mark the center of worship in your home, the place where everybody gathers, what is it? Is it the kitchen table? Maybe right now with virtual worship, maybe it's a laptop or, a TV nook or a den or some other space. But I want to encourage you to think about your place of worship right now. And I want you to consider what Jesus does. As Jesus enters into the temple, he goes through and he flips tables and drives out money changers, but it doesn't actually specifically say that he touches anyone, particularly in Matthew's reading that we just had. It seems that Matthew wants to save the touch of Jesus for healing. John Calvin makes this point for us, actually. And when you look at your center of worship, how does it need to be rearranged to make more room for people, to invite people into that space where you meet with God and where you meet with one another? That's one thing that we should be considering on this Holy Week Monday. The next thing I want you to consider is when we come back, when all of God's church, the physical saints that live here on earth, assemble back at Concordia Lutheran Church, how does it need to change? We will have been apart for, a month and a half at least, maybe more, hopefully less. But we've got time to forget the way things used to be. And maybe it's time for us to look at the way things should be. So I'd love to hear your answers. You can email them to me, matt.gulseth@concordiapullman.org, or you can just call our church office, 332-2830. And I'd love to hear from you what your thoughts are on what needs to be kept and what needs to be changed, how we make room for our God, and how we make room for other people to assemble in the space where he meets with us. So today on Holy Week, this Monday, may the Lord bless you, and may we all have space in our lives for him.